everyone, and welcome back. We're diving into a topic you guys seem super interested in, that AI skills gap. You've sent in some really interesting stuff, and we can tell you're all keen on staying ahead of the curve.
Yeah, it's definitely a hot topic, and for good reason. I mean, the pace of AI development is just incredible. It's impacting pretty much every field imaginable at this point.
Exactly. It's like everyone and their grandma has heard of AI now. But how many of us are actually prepared to work with it, let alone thrive in a workplace that's, being totally reshaped by it? So to kick things off, one of the reports you shared, the 2024 State of Marketing AI report, had a stat that kind of blew my mind. It said only 25.5% of organizations are providing any sort of AI education or training to their people.
Yeah, that's a crazy low number when you actually think about it. And what's even more interesting is this report was focused specifically on marketing, which I thought was interesting. Really shows how AI isn't just some tech department thing anymore. It's everywhere, infiltrating every corner of the business world.
So that skills gap, it's not just a tech problem then, it's everyone's problem.
Exactly. Imagine a marketing team, right? And they're trying to use AI for things like targeted advertising or content creation or even just data analysis. Without the proper training, they're kind of just fumbling around in the dark. They could be wasting time and resources, or even worse, making really costly mistakes.
It's like trying to bake a cake with all the ingredients but no recipe. You might end up with something edible, but it's not going to be pretty. And speaking of lacking the right tools, the LinkedIn article by Willy Seyama, who, by the way, is the CEO of this marketing productivity agency called Initiate, really caught my eye. He says straight up, this lack of training, it's a bigger roadblock to AI adoption than people being scared of the tech itself.
He's got a point. Think about it. Companies can spend a ton of money on the most advanced AI tools out there, but if their team doesn't have a clue how to use them, it's basically a giant waste. It's like having a garage full of Ferraris, but no drivers. All that potential and a surefire recipe for disaster.
Okay, now that's a scary thought. So it seems like knowledge is power when it comes to AI, but what kind of knowledge are we talking about?
That's where AI literacy comes in. It's more than just knowing how to use a specific tool. It's about understanding how AI works on a fundamental level. Things like how algorithms work, what they can't do, and how to use them ethically.
So kind of like how knowing a little bit of coding can help you troubleshoot a website, even if you're not a web developer?
Exactly. The more you understand the why behind the tech, the better you can use it.
Yeah.
And you're more likely to spot potential problems before they become real problems.
And both the State of Marketing AI report and Seyama's article, they both talk about the need for a clear AI strategy. What does that look like in practice? Like for a marketing team, let's say.
It boils down to having a solid plan for how you're going to integrate AI into your regular workflow. First things first, you got to define your goals. What are you trying to achieve with AI? Is it to automate tasks, improve decision-making, create a more personalized experience for your customers, figure out your why? Then you can start thinking about the right AI tools for the job, set some realistic expectations, and figure out how you're going to measure success.
So instead of jumping on the AI bandwagon because everyone else is, you need to have a plan, a purpose, and a way to actually track if it's working.
Exactly. And that plan can't just be about the what and the how of using AI. You also got to think about the who. Who's going to be in charge of managing, monitoring, and making sure all this powerful tech is being used ethically?
Right, because with all the hype, it's easy to forget there are real people involved in building and using AI. Now, we've been talking big picture stuff, but you also shared a report on AI literacy in Africa, the AI in Africa survey, which was a collaboration between Seyama's company and a Kenyan firm. What made you pick that one?
Well, a lot of the conversations around AI are really focused on developed economies. The challenges and opportunities in places like Africa often get overlooked, and this report does a good job of highlighting that perspective.
And I thought it was really interesting that the AI in Africa report found a smaller gap in AI training between African companies and the global average than I would have thought, only about 6% less. Why do you think that is?
Good question. It could be that African companies, even though they might have fewer resources overall, are just more aware of how AI can be a game changer. Maybe they're really pushing hard to close that skills gap, even with the challenges they face.
Perhaps there's a sense of urgency there, a need to use every advantage they can in an increasingly competitive world, right? But before we go any further, let's talk about a piece of the puzzle that you thought was interesting people's attitudes towards AI in South Africa. This was from that global AI survey you shared, the Ipsos report, right?
Yes. It was fascinating. South Africa was consistently ranked higher than the global average on things like understanding AI and believing it can create positive change.
Yeah.
Yeah, like when they were asked if they felt like they understood AI, South Africa came in second out of 31 countries.
Wow. So interesting. Because we've got this potential skills gap, right? But then you've got this incredible optimism and belief in AI. Is that a disconnect? Or is it something else?
It's a great question. And it makes you realize that AI literacy isn't just about, technical skills. It's about critical thinking too. It's about understanding the good and the bad.
So you're saying blind optimism could be just as risky as dismissing AI altogether.
Exactly. What we need is like informed engagement, knowing what AI can do, what it can't do. That's how we'll make smart decisions about how it gets developed and used.
Which brings us back to that Seyama article. He doesn't just lay out the problem, he gives us a 6-step plan that companies can use to improve their AI literacy. It's nice to see someone offering solutions, not just talking about the problem. What were some of those steps?
Well, he starts with something we already talked about, which is developing a clear AI strategy and policy. Can't overstate how important that foundation is.
It's like before you even think about buying fancy AI tools or whatever, you've got to slow down and ask yourself, what are we actually trying to do with AI? How does it fit with our goals?
Exactly. And just as important, you've got to think about the ethical side of things. How are you going to make sure you're using AI responsibly without bias, respecting people's privacy? Those are questions you have to ask before you jump in.
Makes total sense. So you've got your strategy, then what? What's next on the roadmap?
Step 2 is all about making a pilot rollout plan. The idea is to test the waters with AI a little bit before you just go all in.
So start small, experiment, see what works.
Exactly. It's about managing risk and setting yourself up for success. And Seyama really emphasizes that while you're doing that pilot, you should also be building and implementing your AI training program.
Right. Don't just throw new tools at people and hope for the best. You've got to give them the knowledge and the skills to use them effectively and responsibly.
Right. And it's not one size fits all either. The training needs to make sense for the specific jobs and needs within a company. Like for some people, maybe it's learning how to use AI marketing tools, but for others, maybe it's more about analyzing data from those tools.
Okay, so you've got your strategy, your pilot plan, training program. What's next?
Then comes the exciting part, actually putting that pilot plan into action. That's when you get to see how well those AI strategies and policies actually work in the real world.
I bet that's where things get interesting. And maybe a little messy.
Absolutely. It's all a learning process, right? That's why Seyama's last step is so important. After you've run the pilot for a while, you've got to stop, review, and revise. Look at the results, what worked, what didn't work, and use that feedback to make your AI strategy even better. Maybe adjust those policies, tweak the training program.
It's like a continuous loop of getting better, right?
Yeah.
Always improving.
And that's key. Because the world of AI is changing so fast, what works today might be obsolete tomorrow, so you've got to be ready to adapt. AI isn't a destination, it's a journey.
And that journey brings up some big questions, don't you think? It's more than just how do we use AI to sell more widgets. We talked about the skills gap and companies falling behind, but what about individuals? What happens to the people who don't have the opportunity to become AI literate? It's like there's this new road being built, right? This AI superhighway, and if you don't have the right car, or you don't know how to drive it, you're going to get left behind. Creates a whole new kind of digital divide.
Yeah, it's a real concern, and it's something we've got to address head on. I mean, think about it. If being AI literate is becoming the bare minimum for getting ahead in basically every industry, then people who can't get training, whose jobs are going to disappear because of AI, they're going to be at a huge disadvantage.
So how do we stop that from happening? How do we make sure this AI future is fair and inclusive?
Well, it's going to take a real team effort. Governments, schools, they need to make AI literacy a core part of what they teach, just like math or history. Make sure everyone has those basic skills. But businesses have a big part to play here too.
Like what? What should they be doing?
Investing in their employees, offer training programs, create opportunities for people to learn new skills, and really foster this culture of, lifelong learning within their company. It's not just about staying ahead of the curve, it's about doing the right thing.
I love that. So it's not just about avoiding this digital divide, it's about making sure everyone has a chance to succeed in this new world. Well, I think it's safe to say AI isn't some far-off thing anymore.
It's here now.
Yeah.
And it's already changing the world in ways we probably can't even imagine. We're seeing it change everything. Healthcare, finance, like we've been talking about marketing, it's everywhere.
And I think the big takeaway for our listeners today is This AI literacy thing, understanding how it works, having the skills, being aware of the ethical side of it, it's not optional anymore.
It's like the price of entry for the 21st century. If you want to succeed, you got to be AI literate.
So to everyone listening, we encourage you to, really take on this challenge of becoming AI literate. Find resources, be part of these conversations that are happening, and don't be afraid to experiment. Learn as you go.
Because the more we all know about AI, the good and the bad, the better we'll be in making sure it's a force for good in the world.
And who knows, maybe you'll be the one who develops the next big AI breakthrough or leads the way to a brighter, more inclusive future. That's all the time we have for this deep dive. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.